Good morning, everybody. I'm Wendy Nystrom, your host with Environmental Social Justice, and today's special guest is Don Weatherbee. He is the CEO of Regenx Tech Corporation. Welcome to the show, Don.
Thank you very much.
Anytime.
Glad to be here.
I love what you're doing. You're doing something very unique, but before we dive into what Regenx does, I want to talk a little bit about your background because I find it interesting. You have an accounting background. And in this environmental and climate industry, I'm meeting more and more accountants that are coming into this field. So what brought you into the environmental world?
So I have an accounting background and also a mining background.
Yes.
So I was in various different mining groups and ended up with the predecessor company to Regenx was one of these junior exploration companies, just poking holes in the ground, looking for the next piece of property that could be developed. And as we were moving along, we were looking at saying, that's not the best value we could offer. And we started looking at alternative technologies that might be able to work better in the mining industry. And one of the ones was a processing technology that recycled water. Okay. And through that processing, we started to be introduced to different groups. And a group in e-waste was looking to see how we could modify our technology. And from that project, a group that wanted to work with catalytic converters approached us. So the part where we came from is how we got into this side was looking for things that were better and how we could mine or get resources better. And so a combination of we think there's an economic opportunity, but also we think there's alternatives to how we traditionally mine.
I'm a geologist, so people who know me know that. Who don't know me, I studied rocks and dirt. And one of the things with respect to when you're in that field is you see a lot of mines, you visit a lot of mines, you learn a lot about the mining operations, the pollution that it generates, the acid mine drainage from the leachates that they use to get those minerals out. It's not the cleanest thing in the world. And I do know a lot of people in the mining industry that are trying to make it better. They are working on new technologies, so they're not using so many pollutants. They're not generating as much pollution. So very fortunate that you went into that, but you kind of took it a step further. So I wanted to talk about the catalytic converters, because most people would probably stop and say, what are you possibly recycling in a catalytic converter? Why does that make sense? So could you explain sort of why it is an important material to not throw into a landfill?
Sure. So one thing I'll say is there's a lot of people who here on the periphery, catalytic converters, partly because it's in the news a lot with theft. And the reason that it's in the news a lot with theft is because the catalytic converter works, I'll throw my technical thing, it's an oxidizing agent that reduces harmful emissions out the tailpipe.
Yep.
And so to create that reaction, the most effective way currently is to have the gases that the engine creates pass over precious metals, especially platinum and palladium. And when the air mixes with those, it traps some of the pollutants in it. So that means that a catalytic converter has a bunch of platinum and palladium, which are important precious metals in the industry.
But when we're talking about platinum, obviously they're precious metals, obviously they're expensive, but you're talking about microns thick. We're not talking like there's a whole wire of platinum in there.
No. So what it is inside it, it's what's called a honeycomb. And the honeycomb is a substructure that has a bunch of channels, holes, things like that, to try to maximize the amount of airflow over surfaces. And so it's a very thin coating of platinum and palladium, and it's sort of mixed in and how the airflow goes to make it the most efficient. But yeah, there's a couple of grams of the platinum and palladium in each catalytic converters. And so,
and that's why historically people would just be like, they just throw it away, it's not worth it. you think differently. You're approaching this differently. You're saying, yeah, actually, we should be pulling that out.
Yeah. What people forget is that small things add up to large things in a hurry. And you just think about your one car, but there's millions of cars every year that are purchased and scrapped.
Yeah.
So when you start to add grams from your one little piece into multi-millions, that starts to make a big difference. And right now, about 35% of platinum and palladium comes from recycled sources.
How many percentage? What was that?
35.
35. That's a significant number, actually. I was not, that's why I'm like, wait, I must have heard that wrong, because that 35% is pretty large.
Yeah, so 35%, and that's mainly from your gasoline. And I should throw out is that there's two major streams of catalytic converters: gasoline and diesel. So diesel engines run much hotter, so they have to have a different substrate than a gasoline. And so that diesel section of the market, the current recycling section doesn't like the diesel because it affects their productions.
I see.
So that's where we have focused in on is trying to increase the amount of diesels that can actually be recycled. And diesels is a growth segment of the market. Regulations, all catalytic converters come from air regulations and government regulations saying that you need to reduce the piece. And so those regulations started originally with gasoline because it was the easiest one. And they're less, it's easier to get the vehicles that are attached to people to comply than it is to get vehicles attached to companies, which is what made most diesels and trucks and all that. You're attached to companies.
Yeah.
And so diesels were the first part that it came in. Gasoline was the first ones that were being regulated. And then it became diesels. And then it was just diesel trucks. And now it's all diesel engines where sort of generators, marine, all those start to have to hit regulations. And so there's a whole growing piece of the market that the current recyclers don't like.
You know, it's interesting. You kind of touched on something very important. You said it's easier to regulate the individual, the gasoline car driver than the companies. That can cross any barrier of recycling. They always put it on the individual. Recycle that can, recycle that plastic bottle. We should be looking towards the manufacturers that are creating the problem to begin with, and maybe they should be the ones to fix the problem before it goes downstream to the rest of us. But that's another topic. But
that's a part of the business model that we are actively pursuing, is how we can work in conjunction with the OEMs. We call them the OEMs that make it a circular economy is one of the parts to where we are actively pursuing.
Absolutely. And that's an important part, because if you start at with the manufacturers of these materials and keep it from going downstream and keep it from the landfills, because I love the fact you saw that huge gap of people are ignoring the diesel catalytic converters. They're only focusing on the gasoline ones because it's easier. It doesn't mean it goes away. It doesn't mean it's not a problem. We still need to pull these out. So your technology is proprietary, so we're not going to ask you for some details. I play fair, but what is it? I do have some statistics you gave. It's like basically you produces 95% less CO2 and consumes 99% less water during your process. That's pretty impressive.
Yes. So that's compared to mining, and that's the recycling always is going to have a much smaller footprint than trying to pull something from the earth. But we're proud of what we are able to accomplish on how much smaller our footprint can be.
And that is the most important. Oh, let me just, because we were talking about Nashville, just so people can fill in. Sure. Don was in Tennessee last week. I was in Tennessee 2 weeks ago. And one of the things I learned was in Tennessee, their landfills will be completely full in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, that is a common thing. Yeah, I mean, I think you heard. I think I've heard in the news, New York City, on how much that they're barging stuff away because they just
Oh,
don't have the capacity.
oh, well, New York's been doing that for ages. That's always been a problem. I was just surprised with Tennessee filling up so quickly because, there's a lot of space, but it doesn't necessarily mean you fill up all the space with garbage. We want to keep that circularity, that recycling. So let's dive into particularly what Regenx does and how you help people. So people, if they wanted to find you and say, hey, maybe they have catalytic converters they want to get recycled. How can, what is it that you do?
So we're partnered with another group, Davis Recycling. And Davis Recycling is the group that actually approached us to say, I've found this issue. Can you help me? And can your technology work in this section of the market? And so that's where we partnered with them. They're our supply chain management group. They have the expertise on collecting, finding, being able to move that material, because logistics is a large part of making things successful.
Oh, yes.
When you're talking about that we want to run 5,000 pounds a day, that's a lot of material to move and find and make sure that it's all coordinated, that you don't end up with huge amounts sitting on your doorstep for long periods of time.
And it's huge amount. I mean, I went to a couple of recycling facilities in Nashville area, and pallets of computer technology. Pallets.
Yes. We generally get in, ours is in what we call super sacks, which are those big white flexible bags that come in, and there's about 2,200 pounds in each bag that's coming in. So, which is sort of fits on a pallet of baseline. But
and that's a lot of material you have to get through.
Yeah, and people say, well, but it's there. It's the amount that it's all available. It just needs to have a new home found.
And I'm glad you said the new home, because most people, again, this is relatively new. People are used to throwing things away. We've been just binning things for decades. And yes, maybe recycle a can, recycle a plastic bottle, get that nickel. This is a much different scale. This is actually keeping pollutants, metals, precious metals out of landfills that could leachate into our soil and groundwater, and actually recycling it. And now you're probably getting bombarded, I would assume, with some of these, and just keeping up is probably a challenge.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's about a new piece, and it's now sort of funneling down to say there's a home now. And so ours builds around that. It's a pyramid of supply. You've got the little guys who go up to regionals and to that. And so what it is getting the news down to the little guy that there's a home for these now. You can take them off the vehicles and move it up the value chain, because they weren't going to do the work if there wasn't something at the end of the day for them. So we're now communicating out there that we're ready for your materials.
That's fantastic. And your plant that you're opened is in Asheville, correct?
No, it's in Greenville, Tennessee.
Greenville,
Yeah.
Because we were talking about hurricanes and stuff, and Asheville got hit pretty hard. That's where my brain went.
Yes.
So it's in Greenville. So you are based in the U.S., in Tennessee. Is that your primary location, or are you going to scale up?
That's our first location.
Okay.
So we're just starting. We brought module 1 online. We will, at that area, we'll expand to, our plans to expand to 4 modules in that one location. And then we'd look sort of, is there an opportunity on the West Coast? That sort of baseline.
I can guarantee you. What you said, module. Could you explain? Because I think having modular technology is incredibly important. Could you explain to people what modular means to you in your business, and why it's important with respect to circularity and equipment?
Sure. So we went down the path of modular for a couple different reasons. Because economically, it was easier to set up the first module than trying to set up the whole plant. Efficiently, if you run one line, any part of the line goes down, the whole line's down. If we're modular, you can have planned maintenance for different sections and still be able to keep yourself operating. The big accountant in me is coming out for you on these pieces here.
Oh, yeah.
And then the other piece is to look at the effectiveness of the physics side. And what we talk about on our technology is that there was a chemistry problem we had to solve, and there was a physics problem we had to solve. So the chemistry is being able to actually get the piece to work, but the physics side is scaling. There's a lot, we talked about the material. Well, that material has to run through different stages of our process, and it has to be moved in different methods. It starts as a powder. It then gets slurried into a solution. Then you have to separate out the powder and then work with a solution again. So you're moving material types through pipes and pumps and all that in different forms. So how do you efficiently do it? And any material can be moved easily at a pilot stage or a lab stage, because as you go smaller and smaller, pumps and flow, you can never get the small enough. You're always going to be overpowered in your pumping and all that in your testing.
Oh, I didn't know that. Because
if you just think about going from two sides, a fish pump, like a pump in a fish tank, it's going to move the material really easily. And it doesn't matter whether it's clogged or not, a little bit of extra, the rationale of moving a little bit, you'll push through clogs. Now move up to a 2-foot pipe. When it gets clogged, the power you need to be able to have those things, they're not linear, they're exponential. And so making sure that you could move material was just as critical to making the process successful as having the chemistry work.
So you need a ton more energy to push that through. So as before you said, it's not linear going like this. It's
well, and it's not just whether or not you need a ton more energy, because you can't it's how you design the paths and the flow and what type of pumping you use. Brute force works in small. It doesn't necessarily work in big. So you have to make sure you understand what types of pumping you're using versus other areas. So it was just as much a physics problem as it was a chemistry problem to get where we are.
I love the fact, like, brute force only. So I'm a brute force, like, push it through. So that would not work.
I'm not saying we didn't try brute force.
It probably got a lot of frustration out initially, only to create more later on.
Yes.
But no, the modular idea, I'm a big fan of modular because I like the fact that when something does break, it doesn't shut down the whole system. You just remove that one little part, you can fix it, everything kind of keeps going, and then you replace that. Yeah. And that's very important for people to understand, because more and more we're seeing technology in manufacturing, even homes. People are building modular homes where as your family grows, you can like add an extra room. As the kids move out, you can remove it, someone else takes it. And I thought that was a really cool idea for architecture. So we are seeing this more and more frequently as we adapt to the way life has to be now. I mean, quite honestly.
Yeah, I have full agreement on.
So yeah, and you're looking to scale up. So you've got you're building out your modules. I'd be surprised if you couldn't find someone in California, and I'm going to totally help you find people in that, because we have a lot of automobiles here. We're a car town. I mean, LA, it's car people.
Yes.
But so you've got your Davis, is it Davis Recycling? Did I remember that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Are you looking to expand with other recyclers in other states, or sticking with just them?
Well, they have a network of about 13 states that they're primarily located in on the eastern seaboard. So they're our partner for the eastern seaboard, and they're very well connected throughout the whole country on what they do. So it's not saying we won't look but we have a pretty good partner.
You have a solid relationship, which is awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's the most important. Yeah. Your relationships are the most important aspect of any business. You can talk to anyone who does anything across the globe. It's who you work with that matters. So who are you looking to connect with? How can people find you? Because what you're doing is freaking fascinating.
So we're looking at two parts. Is one, like I said, to get the information out there to the first layer of people who have access to the catalytic converters, and they will start moving up that supply chain. The other one is we're a publicly traded company, so we're always looking to push our investor base and give it as an opportunity to people to share in the story. So in Canada, we're corporately based in Canada. I'm up in Canada. We're traded under the symbol RGX. Oh. And down in the States on the OTCQB, we're RGXTF.
GF. Oh, okay. TF.
Yeah.
Very close. Yeah, I think the investor side is very important because I honestly, I mean, I've done well over 350 interviews on this show. You're the first person I've met who's actually focusing on catalytic converters, specifically diesel. I don't know anyone else who's doing this.
Yeah. We know some people in the lab, but they still have a lot of work to do to, like I said, to make sure that they understand the physics side of it. And
clearly it's not brute force.
Oh, I'm giving away the secret. Damn. No. It's brute force. You try the brute force. Keep going on brute force.
Keep pushing as hard as you can, because I would be the one that was like, So Don, thank you. I mean, this has been enlightening because I honestly didn't know that scraping off microns of precious metals was possible and efficient and cost effective, which is the most important thing. And doing it as, in an intelligent way that you guys are doing it, and actually fixing our landfill problem is extraordinarily important.
No, that's we're not just, I'll admit, we're not just altruistic. We're glad that it's part of it, but we see a true economic opportunity here too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm just happy that you're keeping some of these pollutants out of landfills, because the leachates it's not good. It's a bad situation. So, but yeah, it makes financial sense as well, which, I mean, let's be real about sustainability. If you can't make money doing it, you're not sustainable. And then you kind of break that triple bottom line. So, Don, what is the best way for people to contact you if they wanted to email you or reach out?
Go to our website, 𝑣𝒍𝒂𝒎𝒊𝒏𝒈.
𝑣𝒍𝒂𝒎𝒊𝒏𝒈, perfect. And they can just kind of scroll through into the contact page.
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant. So Don, thank you so much for your time today. I've actually learned quite a bit today about catalytic converters that I never thought I would know. So this is pretty cool for me.
I understand that thought.
Was it enlightening for you? Like when you first started this, you're like,
oh yes.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yes, really. That's really what you said. Okay, really, that's interesting.
You're like, is this? Oh, okay, this is how it happens. I mean, most people, they don't even think about it. They get a new car, they dump it, they move on. So what you're doing is fantastic. So folks, please check out Regenx. Please check out Don Weatherbee. They are doing good work. They are cleaning up the environment with respect to our catalytic converter problem. And it also makes financial sense. So you really can't ask for more than that. So Don, again, thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anytime. So guys, I'm Wendy Nystrom, your host with Environmental Social Justice. We are now proudly supported and sponsored by BioLargo. They just make life better. So please check them out. And we'll catch you guys next time. Take care. Bye.